What if I told you that the rice and wheat which you eat today is poison? It hardly gives you any nutrition, and that today's rice and wheat is responsible in a big way for the number one killer diseases of our times, which are the non-communicable diseases. Keep watching to find out why. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Healthy Drive. This channel is about your health and how to deal with your chronic metabolic health issue not by medicines but by nutrition and lifestyle changes. Well, you are what you eat, or rather what you grow to eat. For most Indians, the main two staples are rice and wheat. If anything else is not available, Indians are able to sustain themselves with a simple fare of rice and wheat with just a sprinkle of salt with some chili and onion or pickles. People posted in remote areas sometimes make do with chapatis and onion as their daily ration. As such, rice and wheat are the main source of our sustenance and nutrition. In this light, it becomes necessary or rather mandatory to ascertain the food values of these two staples that we eat daily. So what has gone wrong with rice and wheat? When India attained independence in 1947, providing food to a massive hungry population was a challenge. The country had severe food shortages and famines. To address this, the Green Revolution was launched by Government of India in 1967 in an attempt to secure self-reliance in food. The focus was on rice and wheat, and in order to counter the food shortages, new high-yielding varieties of grains were introduced. In the last 50 years, our country has introduced high-yielding rice and wheat varieties at a breakneck speed to achieve food security. It resulted in a grain output of 131 million tons in the year 78-79 and established India as one of the world's biggest agricultural producers. But there was a price to pay. While India has become self-reliant in grains in the last 50 years, a recent study done by Indian Council of Agricultural Research published in November 2023 in the Journal of Nature has for the first time looked at the food value of these modern-bred grains and delivers some dire warnings. These food grains that we eat have not only lost their food value but are also high in toxins. And what's worse, these grains have become so impoverished that they are worsening the growing burden of non-communicable diseases. If rice and wheat is not providing us with the nutrition and is poisoning us instead, then we are in the middle of a silent famine. Let me explain why. As I mentioned, the Green Revolution, which was launched in 1967 by the Government of India in a young country, the main thrust then was to provide food to a rapidly increasing population. For that, research was focused on high-yielding varieties of crops. They were known as cultivars. These are plants developed for their particular characteristics which met this criteria. Around 1500 of them were introduced and released by the government for a rapid growth in food production. What has been observed in this study is that these staples, which constitute more than 70% of the energy requirements of Indians, have lost about 45%, that nearly half of their nutritional value over the years. Essential minerals such as iron and zinc, calcium and copper have been depleted. You can see it in the graph. The decline is more severe in rice than wheat. At the same time, toxins such as arsenic have increased to an extent of 1493%, and the percentage of aluminium, chromium, barium and strontium, etc. These are substances which cause chronic respiratory diseases, impaired bone calcification, renal toxicity and even cancer when ingested. So, on one hand, the grains have lost their nutritional value, and on the other, they have become more toxic for human nutrition. Why has this happened? Could it be that the environmental issue like soil quality or water contamination or any other factor? There can only be two reasons. First, the soil quality may have degenerated, leading to the poor nutrition of the plants, or secondly, the plants somehow have lost the ability to extract the nutrition from the soils. The scientists did grow crops on experimental nutrient-rich soils which also resulted in the same poor nutrition. Therefore, something must have changed within the plants itself. The fact is, the popular varieties of these high-yielding dwarf plants are not efficient to extract minerals from the soil. While they are growing in large numbers, they have lost their genetic traits of carrying nutrition from the soil. The indigenous varieties of grains before the Green Revolution for thousands of years had acquired genetic features that were not only highly suitable for the particular agroecology that we have, but also rich in nutritional content. The new dwarf varieties isolated the genes that would be high yielding by inserting density of photosynthase, which are nothing but simple sugar, into these new varieties. The plants were genetically selected so that they were not required to extract other minerals and nutrients from the soil. Over time, the native genes gradually started to die away, and the rice and wheat simply became sugars with almost no nutrients at all. Rice, which is an intelligent plant, had the ability to screen out the harmful toxins from reaching the grain. Whatever is harmful to them is also harmful to humans. If there is, for example, arsenic present in the soil, they would simply switch off the transporting ability to carry that to the grains. Imagine that. But over time, they have lost that mechanism, becoming more and more toxic through environmental influence such as pesticide, salinity, and groundwater arsenic. Similarly, they had the ability to screen and fill their grains with nutrients from the soil, which the dwarf varieties do not have due to selective breeding. Rice is more impacted than wheat, since rice is usually cultivated under submerged conditions, whereas wheat is cultivated in drier conditions. When soil is flooded, air do not reach the soil efficiently, which leads to heavy metals undergoing chemical changes. They become more soluble in the water and are readily absorbed by the plant and gets carried into the grains. This, my dear friends, is the horror story of rice and wheat, the cornerstone of what we eat in our country. This is the reason why eating rice and wheat today is just like eating sugar along with some toxins and carcinogens. Yes, the pesticide glyphosate, which is sprayed in modern day high yield variety crops, is known carcinogen. So what are we eating today? What we are eating today is to a large extent responsible for the non-communicable diseases epidemic in our country. Rice and to some extent wheat has been the main staple of India since thousands of years. Rice has been cultivated as far back as 7000 BC. Yet suddenly, thanks to the Green Revolution, our rice and wheat has become the culprit for the spread of non-communicable diseases. In fact, we have lost more than 1 lakh of varieties of indigenous rice after the Green Revolution, which are no longer grown. All we are left with is rice and wheat, which is nothing but sugar. Are you surprised then that India is now the diabetes capital of the world? Not only the urban but also the rural population, the youth, and even the children, including people who have no access to so-called fast foods, are developing obesity and diabetes in India. Absolutely no one is spared. This was not supposed to happen, and it does seem like a betrayal on many fronts. The purpose of this video was to make you aware of this vital issue. What do we do now? Then stop eating rice and wheat altogether? It's easy to say that, but that is hardly the practical for most of our population. Most of my patients tell me that, doctor, if I can't eat rice and roti, then what am I going to eat? How am I going to fill my stomach? I have no real answer to this question, looking at the ground realities of the people of our country. What then is the solution? Well, it will not be possible or viable to turn back the clock and go back to the indigenous way of cultivation. Scientists are now trying to develop biofortified varieties of various grains including rice, wheat, millet, maize, etc. and introduce it to the farmers. By the way, we had also abandoned millets with the Green Revolution. There is an effort now to focus on millets, but it's a long journey. As of now, only 6% of the total cultivations have adopted these varieties of rice and wheat. The projects have to be commercially viable, for one thing, and it is also difficult to bring around farmers from their familiar ways of farming. The preoccupation of the farmer will always be higher yields in order to make farming a viable option for them, let alone profit, and therefore a way has to be found to match the two. Scientists and our government has to focus on increasing both the quality and the quantity of crops, and it has to be done on a war footing. The health of the people must be prioritized for the progress of the nation. I am sure you will agree with that. Till then, in your own way, you can try to get hold of indigenous varieties of rice and wheat, which may be growing in less number of times a year but has nutrition in it. If you create a demand, I am sure the farmers will be encouraged to cultivate them. Let that be your contribution. That is something positive and practical to look forward to. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Do like and share this vital video with everyone you know. And I'll catch up with you in the next one.